Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Photography means to me, I'm not a professional photographer, but it allows us to capture a snapshot in time that we can always refer back to. And those can be really great memories, or they can be memories that aren't so good. But having that image evokes emotions and feelings that one feels at the time, I think. So it's nice to have that history in pictures, the history of our lives in pictures, and the most important moments in our lives and how they relate to each of us individually.
That's fantastic. Melody Horrill, right? Am I saying your name incorrectly?
No, that's pretty close. It's good enough.
Oh, how would you say it?
It's Horrill. So
Horrill.
yeah, Horrill. But it's not bad. It's
No,
not bad.
look, being like you're Australian, and so I'm going to spell out a name, and you please tell me how you would say it. So Marrietta.
Marietta.
Yeah, that's how I would say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. So I've heard some Australians say Marita.
Really?
Marita.
It depends on what part of Australia you're from, because there are actually distinct differences between the states here, and people don't realise that. So we all speak a little differently.
Of course. Well, look, really good to meet you. Your energy is super bright. It looks kind of cold. You're in Melbourne.
It is. I'm in Melbourne, and it's very cold. I think this has to be one of the coldest winters in recent memory, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas here in Hong Kong, it's like 35 degrees Celsius, sweating. Yeah.
Well, I think I'd rather the 35 degrees Celsius, thanks.
Sure. Okay, so I don't look at the photos beforehand, and I'm really curious. Okay, Melody, let's look at the first photo. Oh, wait a second. Okay, so it's a photo of the very iconic, impossible to mistake for someone else, Jane Goodall, who I think she's in her late 80s, early 90s. Is that possible?
She turned 90 this year.
Yes, Jane Goodall. She's wearing a Patagonia jacket with a blue turtleneck, her bright, beautiful expression. I don't know where, it looks like it could be a hotel, it could be in her house, no idea. And what makes the shot is that she's holding up a book called The Dolphin Who Saved Me. That's right. And wait a second, your name's on the title of that book.
Yes, it is indeed.
Okay.
It is indeed.
So take it away.
Sure. So a couple of years ago, I decided to leave my full-time employment and write my memoir, which I'd been meaning to do for years and years and years, but never felt equipped to do it and never felt it was the right time. But through a set of circumstances, I decided that now was the time. So I'm a journalist by trade, but I'd never attempted writing a book before. So I sat down and I wrote it. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever done, and one of the most, the roller coaster of emotions writing that book is something that I'd never really experienced before. It was picked up by an Australian publisher, then picked up internationally. So late last year, it was released around the world. And I was asked to think of people who I would like to write a little endorsement for it.
Nice.
So I've always been a fan of Jane's, always loved her work, admire her, such an inspirational woman. So I hooked up with an old colleague who I knew that had some dealings with Jane over the years, and I said to him, is there any chance that you could, give me an email address or something? Anyway, he did eventually dig one up. And so I sent this email to her people, and lo and behold, she wrote back and said it was one of the loveliest books ever and it deserved to be a bestseller. And she hopes I like her words that she'd written
Mm-hmm.
for it. And that was one of those moments in life that didn't feel quite real.
Mm.
It was astonishing. I was sitting out on the deck. It was a summer's morning in January, and it was a warm morning, and the whole environment around me felt surreal. It was very dreamlike. I
Mm-hmm.
could not believe that she'd responded and responded so beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, she contacted me again and asked me to be involved with her cetacean committee, her dolphin and whale committee that she'd recently formed.
Oh, wow.
And I was again astounded and thought someone was playing a prank on me, actually. But of course, I accepted. And so for the past, 18 months or so, I've been involved with this international committee, and I get to speak to people around the world about something I love very much, which is the ocean, and particularly dolphins and whales. We try and make a good impact, a better impact. So, astonishing turn of events in my life, and to have her hold that book in Canada, it was, and
Mm-hmm.
I asked for a picture of her with a book. I sent her a book, and she posed for a picture, and that means a lot to me. That's amazing,
Oh, it's
amazing
the
thing.
best. So, we don't know each other. One of the things, so the book that she's holding up is beautifully designed. The lettering is in white on this kind of jade green sort of field, and across at the bottom of the book is a very telling, beautiful shot of what I looks like a bottlenose dolphin. Okay, so one of the things that I did in Hong Kong after the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, I started a campaign to protect the marine conservation. And so
Great.
in this case, I targeted sharks, but it was
Yep.
really about marine conservation. And through those efforts, reached out to Jane Goodall, reached out to a lot of conservationists. Of course, there's this population of humans on the planet who look beyond, like the greater good that we look to is the biosphere. And so where you live now and where you are now, what is your contact to cetaceans? Like, are you far from the ocean? Like, what? And but there's so many things that you said too, because you're a journalist, and you said that
Yes.
writing a book was hard, and I was like, but wait a
Yes.
second, you're a journalist.
Yes. So writing a book is very different to writing a news story or a feature article for a magazine.
Sure.
And it's particularly writing a memoir, because what you're essentially doing is you're putting your heart, well, I felt very much so, I was putting my heart out on a plate,
Mm-hmm.
warts and all. Here's the good and the bad. Please, and putting it out into the world and hoping that someone doesn't come along and stab it, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because when you're writing a memoir, you're just laying it all out there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
stuff that nobody knows about me,
Mm-hmm.
and you're making yourself very vulnerable. It's a very
Yeah.
vulnerable thing to do. So it's scary. And going back and actually revisiting certain parts of your life is quite difficult.
Mm.
So there was the joy and the horror that I, revisited over pretty much almost 12 months. So it's very different to writing a story about something else,
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
something that, you're that's not a personal thing.
Right.
And a news story or a piece in a paper it's not that long, but a book is 70, 80, 90,000 words. It's a lot.
Okay. Again, you don't know me. I come from the world of writing. I understand the process of drafting books, drafting articles. Also the task of the author, in the sense of when you're writing an article for a magazine, or it's as you say, you put a gap or a distance between yourself and the subject, and you're just reporting and you're just talking about whatever it is dispassionately. Whereas here, as a memoir, it's like you're going to the heart of yourself and vulnerable, as you said, for sure. Okay, so the title is called The Dolphin Who Saved Me. And I don't know what else is coming up, but is this the big reveal? Like, what about talking about that experience? Because to open yourself up and to feel vulnerable is to kind of to put yourself away from safety, to take away the safety net. So what is it about this book or this story that makes you feel vulnerable? Because from the outside, it's just a beautiful idea of a dolphin who saved you. Amazing.
Well, because my background growing up was one that was racked with domestic violence, and that left a scar on me, and I entered the world as a young adult pretty much adrift and a little lost, and with a carefully constructed mask. Very few people knew about my past, and it was quite violent. And it wasn't until I drifted that way, really drifted along that way, until I decided to try and change my life, because I didn't want my past to define my future. And I put myself back through school and through university. And that's where I met a solitary, wild, injured dolphin called Jock when I signed up to volunteer on a dolphin research program. And the dolphin, Jock, and he's the other dolphins in the river as well, taught me. They were my greatest teachers. He was my greatest teacher. He taught me about forgiveness. He taught me about trust. He taught me about acceptance. He taught me about connecting with the world around me. He taught me about bravery. And this was a relationship that I had with this particular wild dolphin for a little over 3 years.
Okay.
And he taught me more in that 3 years than I'd learnt through my entire life. And it set me on a journey to healing and seeing my life in a completely different way.
So I am a shit interviewer because I don't really ask questions. But here's the connection I made. Jane Goodall is renowned for being this punky kid who doesn't even go to university, goes and sits in the wild and observes and does everything wrong about scientific observation and data gathering of chimpanzees. And then by planting herself directly in the lives of these various groups, is able to make profound observations that, in a way, remake humans' perception of our place in the world, our relationship to animals, all that stuff. So the parallel of you rehabilitating for 3 years Jock and maybe others, maybe I don't know if maybe it wasn't just for data gathering, and maybe it was just for rehabilitation, or maybe it was
more connection, actually, if I can jump in there.
Please.
Study the dolphins, of course. That was the part of the plan, but it was a deep friendship and deep connection that I felt. Certainly, I can't speak for him, the dolphin, but he became my friend. And it didn't matter that I was another species and I was living a land-dwelling species in his environment. In fact, he welcomed me into his environment and accepted me for what I was. It's the first time in my life anything had done that.
What a great start. Okay, So good. Oh, here we go. Okay, okay. Now this is nice. This is great. So, a photographer is standing on the bank of a river. The river is full on, like it's not very deep. It's overgrown with trees. You can see the plants in the on the
Mangroves.
riverbed. As mangroves, okay, mangroves. And there's a boat with somebody kind of standing with a cowboy hat or whatever, and a long sleeve, just standing on the back of the boat, just checking things out. Hanging at the back of the boat is a young girl in a bathing suit, holding on to the ladder, and you can see the fins, green fins, and right behind her is this bottlenose dolphin.
Yep.
Now, I didn't know that they hang out in rivers, so take us to school. What is this?
It's actually it's called the Port River, and it's based in southern Australia. It's quite close to the capital city. It's actually an estuary,
Okay.
so it's saltwater and it's mangrove lined, and it's also quite industrialised. That
Wow.
photo that you're looking at is part of the river that was not taken over by factories and boat building yards, etc. Part of the natural area, and hence it's a mangrove channel that you're looking at there. And Jock, this particular dolphin, used to hang around in this part of the river, which was artificially warmed by a local power station, actually, very warm water. And he was a solitary dolphin. He didn't hang out with any other dolphins. He just stayed in this one little area. And as you can see by that photo, he had a very deformed, damaged dorsal fin caused
Right.
by getting wrapped up in fishing line and nets many, many times that had cut into his flesh. And the chap standing on the boat is a man by the name of Dr. Mike Bosley, who is running the research program. And I was one of several people, young research assistants, who assisted him with the research and who got to know Jock
Yeah.
over the years. And on that particular photo was Jock approaching the boat of his own accord. We never enticed him, never fed him, never. Everything was done on his terms. He approached us on his terms. And we would interact with Jock, and he, as I said, he accepted us into his world without question. Remarkable, really, when you consider that this dolphin had been speared, had been caught up in fishing line and nets. Goodness knows what had happened to its mother. It was only a young dolphin. It was living in a heavily polluted environment with temperature, very warm water. And yet he accepted myself and the other research assistants fully. Now, if that isn't something accepting another entity whose species that has caused so much damage, amazing. So that taught me all about forgiveness and
Okay.
moving on.
Right. Okay. I did an experiential expedition in the Azores where we went out into the water every day to take for cetacean research, so data analysis for whales and dolphins. And at one point, we're in the middle of the Atlantic, boats pitching up and down, and there was a massive pod of common dolphins that go by.
Beautiful.
And I was standing at the edge of the boat, almost with the boat would almost reach the line of the water, and sort of like you in the photograph, where you're separated by 1 or 2 meters of distance between your face and this dolphin's face, and there's something deeply profound about making a visual connection, because as humans we our eyes are how we connect to the other, and to have this dolphin go on its side and look at you, and you're looking at each other, and there's definitely that connection, I mean, however you want to call it.
I think it's an acknowledgement of another sentient, intelligent being.
Yeah. Okay, so in a way, like in terms of therapy is kind of like you show up and you're the one who's opening doors, and you're responding to what's being reflected back at you. So, like Jock provided this huge therapeutic channel for you to kind of learn and grow. And a lot of it was, say, projected. And in a way, it's what you needed at that time. Because, of all the choices you could have made, you made all the right choices to end up in the water with this dolphin right there on that day. So what was the lesson that you were looking for when you got in the water with him?
Well, I guess I wasn't looking for a lesson. When I first saw Jock, my very, very first time I saw him, firstly, I couldn't believe it was a dolphin because he was so disfigured. But he seemed so alone. He was just circling this one boat around and around and around. He seemed so alone, so disconnected from the world around him in many ways, and certainly the other dolphins, and injured, obviously, and adrift somehow, that instantly resonated with me. I instantly felt, I can't say how he felt about me, but I certainly felt an instant connection to this dolphin because in many ways I saw myself reflected in him. And his external scars really reflected my internal ones. So it was that instantaneous compassion and connection that I felt. It's a completely wild dolphin. And yeah, over the next 3 years, obviously, I got to know him as an individual.
3 years? How often would you get into the water?
Maybe once a week, probably.
Okay.
Twice a week sometimes during summer, but, it depended on the weather a lot of the time. And Mike had other research assistants as well. I wasn't the only one. So, yeah, probably average once a week. And there were many other dolphins that lived there, but of course Jock stayed in his own little patch. He didn't venture out.
What was the most noticeable change over 3 years in terms of his own growth or rehabilitation or
Jock's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly not making myself to be his therapist because I wouldn't make that sort of assumption at all. But one of the most amazing things was he used to love leaping behind the research boat in the wake of the boat, leaping high out of the water and just belly flopping back onto the water. And I'd always be worried that he'd land in the boat, but he never did. It was amazing. But he'd always stop at the edge of his home range. And we decided to try and use his love of leaping in the wake of the boat to try and help introduce him to other dolphins, get him out of his comfort zone. So over a period of time, and it was a period of time, we managed to lure him further and further out until one day a pod of dolphins approached us, and instead of hiding behind the boat, he joined them.
Oh, okay.
He actually ventured out from behind the boat and he joined them. That taught me a lot about courage and getting out of our comfort zone and the importance of bravery. I was so proud. I know that sounds a bit patronising, but I was really quite proud of him. And then one day we went out and we couldn't find Jock, and he was playing with another pod of dolphins. And he swam over to the boat and he turned on his side and looked at the three of us were standing in the boat. He turned on his side. We made eye contact, and he swam back to the pod. And I knew he was saying goodbye. And the three of us stood on the boat and we cried. It was a poignant moment. Thank goodness he had made dolphin friends.
Okay, so the point of the podcast is, how do we make every second count? Life is going to throw hardship your way. Generally not your choice. Usually you're shaped by your wounds. For example, in his case, he gets his dorsal fin sliced. He gets speared, as you said. In your case, not to delve into your childhood trauma, but how do we pull back and share a lesson about either resilience or dealing with what life throws at us to keep going, right? Because it just so happens that yesterday I met a guy who I haven't seen in years, so I've eaten my fair share of bullshit in the past few years. And this guy, the parallels are so similar. And so the question is, okay, so what's the lesson that we can learn from your experience with Jock to sort of help people?
There's a few probably. I mean, and I don't make myself out to be a therapist. Let me say that up front. But I think there are a few things that crappy things happen to everybody.
Yep.
And it's part of life. So it's inescapable. If you want to live life, the bad things are going to happen. And I think we just have to all accept that as part of life in some respect, as much as we don't want them to. But also, I think it's really important not to let your past define your future. And I've said that before, but it's very easy to get lost in the pain of the past and to lose yourself and in the bad things that have happened to you. But it doesn't have to be that way. You are not defined by what you did yesterday or who you were. In my view, you're defined by what you do now, which brings us back to the importance of just taking in this moment. And I think that's one of the things that Jock really taught me, was to appreciate the beauty of the moment. And it's very difficult to explain. It's not worrying about yesterday, not worrying about tomorrow, but just focusing on what's happening right now.
Right.
I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. And
thank you. That's good.
So I'm really trying to immerse myself in this moment with you, having this conversation, because it's kind of special. We're connected.
It's miraculous.
Yeah. And you love dolphins and I do. And how amazing that we've got this technology which allows us to do this.
No, it's a miracle.
Well, it's finding that amazement, finding that nugget of magic in a moment and just truly living it. I think Jock also taught me that I was okay. I was okay. I was actually quite worthy to hang out with, and I was okay to be around. Yeah. So that sort of level of acceptance is something that's very special, and I think it's important that we all accept one another and our scars and all of the bad things and all of the good things without judgment, without preconceived ideas. So Jock also, he taught me that. And I think the other thing is that we have to realise that we're all connected. All of us live on this planet. All of us are a part of the natural world. We are. Yep. We are. We can't live without nature, and nature can pretty well exist without us.
Absolutely.
Right? But we are all connected, and I think it's about re-establishing those connections with the natural world, with other things on this planet, other living things on this planet, and instead of trying to separate ourselves all of the time. It's focusing on what we all have in common rather than what sets us apart from one another.
Okay, this is great. Okay, so it's a close-up portrait of a black cat that has a lot of red in its front fur. I mean, it's not super bright, but in the image, the snap, you can just sort of see the tinge of just a little bit of red in the undercoat. Beautiful black cat wearing a collar. Paws are just kind of ahead. Eyes are perfect kind of green. Sitting on what's probably an outdoor patio cushion. Yeah. So, Melody Horrill, what is this?
This is my rescue cat Q.
Okay.
So Q sat by me while I wrote my memoir
Ah.
and was the only one really privy to all of the ups and downs and the emotions while writing that. He actually is. I acknowledged him in the book as
Mm-hmm.
something that really helped me
Mm-hmm.
get through writing it. But he also became the focus of my very first kids' book, which is a
Okay.
fantasy that I'd always wanted to write as a little girl. And after my memoir was published and we were in lockdown here in Victoria from COVID, I decided to finally write that kids' fantasy.
Nice.
And one of the main characters is based on my rescue cat Q.
Okay.
And the book is called A Cat Called Q and the Magic Globe. And
Nice.
although it is a fantasy, it is shares the same themes in many ways as my memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
is finding bravery and courage and connecting with animals, nature, and the natural world. It just so happens that this story is fantastical, and the main character, or one of the main characters, is a large black 14-year-old rescue cat who has been by my side while writing. So that book is about to come out in 2 weeks.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So,
There you
okay,
go.
so it was a great juxtaposition. Okay, so first you write a very serious memoir that aims to convey to an adult reader, an adult mind who's seen things. We didn't talk about the content of the book, but that follows your experience in helping, rehabilitating, connecting with this wild dolphin.
Mhm.
And you said that going back to those times was very difficult.
It was difficult and joyful.
Okay,
Difficult
joyful. Okay,
talking, going back to aspects about my childhood, but joyful going back to when I met Jock and that 3 years I
yeah,
spent. Yeah.
right. So that's published, and then you shift gears to writing a children's book
Yes.
with a very whimsical idea of. So in the photo, because of the angle, the head seems very large, right? Just because of the angle. So oddly enough, I just bought a book called The Master and Margarita, which was written by Mikhail Bulgakov. He's a Russian novelist, and one of his characters is this big cat
Bro,
walks around. Yeah, yeah.
hey,
Um, doing a children's book that's a bit more fantastical is quite a big gear shift from being a journalist and from writing a memoir.
it is. You're right.
Okay, so talk to me about being whimsical. Talk to me about pushing the edge of what's possible and fantasy and being silly and all that stuff.
Well, after writing the memoir, I think the very reason why I decided to finally write this book that, I'd really dreamed up the concept as a kid, really, was because I needed that escape myself.
Right.
Writing the memoir was fantastic and both joyful and, quite difficult, but it was real. It's
Mm-hmm.
real,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to. And as I said, we're in COVID lockdown, so I guess I felt the time was right to actually
Right.
attempt. I'd never written a fantasy before, but I'd had this idea brewing in my head since I was a child. Really,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
always loved fantasy books as a kid. I used to escape into them myself.
Mm-hmm.
Could I write one? I don't know. So I gave it a crack, as we'd say here in Australia. And once I started, I just really started enjoying the process.
Nice.
I just had a lot of fun with it. I injected a bit of humour. I drew, the characters are all drawn from people I actually know,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the animal characters are drawn from people I've met along the way. My friend in Adelaide lives in a different state. My lifelong friend, she's a beautiful woman, is an illustrator. She did all the illustrations for
Oh,
me,
nice.
and it was just a lot of fun. And I was able to put a lot of what I'd learnt from my experiences with Jock and growing up into the fantasy book.
Mm-hmm.
The lessons I'd learned without,
Sure.
you know, forcing people to see it as a lesson. That isn't the point. But it's just subtle. So as I said, that reconnection with the natural world, the care of animals, and as the main character of the book is a young girl who gets bullied and she lacks confidence, and it's all about her finding her bravery. So there are many aspects to that fantasy book which are grounded in reality. I loved it. I loved writing it. It was just such a blast.
So was that book one, and now you're going to start working on book two?
No. Book three
Oh
is
wow!
in September this year. My second non-fiction book will be published by an Australian publisher,
Look at you.
and that's called Sheltered. So
Okay.
that's a non-fiction book, but I interviewed a whole lot of people about their relationships with their rescue animals,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I've written their stories effectively.
Right.
And once again, it follows a similar theme.
So another thing that you don't know about me is that in just until a little recently, in our house we had a bunch of sheltered animals, like rescue animals, right? So
Yes.
cats and dogs, and there's definitely something to be said for stepping outside of your sort of functional realities of, okay, having to run a household and doing all the things, to say, well, okay, we're going to rescue this particular animal, and each animal has its own character and its own personality and quirks and all this stuff. So you write a book about your experience about with connecting with a wild dolphin, and then the second book is connected to your rescued cat, domesticated cat, and then another book is kind of collecting the stories from people who've sheltered various animals. Right. Imagine there's a question in there.
You're probably thinking why so erratic, but
Nope.
it certainly wasn't planned that way. I just felt that once I opened my mouth to start saying something while writing my memoir, I haven't been able to shut it up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, it's an impulse, and it's like the creative drive, and it's like there's that little thing that wants expression. Don't shut it up. Like, let it sing. I love it. I totally love it. So how many cats and how many dogs do you have in your house?
I only have one cat. Uh,
Oh,
only
you wimp.
Yes, but if I had a different house, I'd definitely have a dog as well.
Sure.
I love all animals, and to be quite frank with you, if I could get a nice big house on a big block of land, I'd probably have lots
Mm.
and lots and lots of animals. But I live close to the city, so it's just not practical and all right for them.
Don't let me give you a hard time. Don't let me give you a hard time.
No, no, no. If I had my way, the house would be full of them. Trust me.
Sure.
But over the years, actually, in the final book, Sheltered, which is, as I said, due out in September, I start the book by talking about the other rescue animals that have impacted me on my life, actually, that
Mm-hmm.
I've shared my life with. And Q is just the latest one. He's lying on the bed over there at the moment. And, I've had some remarkable friends
Mm-hmm.
along the way. Apart from a wild solitary dolphin, I've had, cats and dogs who've really actually played a massive part in my life. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah. And also the fact that there are many shelters here in Australia which are going through a really difficult time with people with the amount of animals coming in and economic hardships. People aren't able to
Mm-hmm.
keep their animals. So I felt that perhaps by sharing these stories, I could encourage other people to consider adoption.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, since you said consider adoption, let's move on to the next photo. And just so that you know, like at the heyday, at its peak, we had 6 dogs and 4 cats in the house.
What's happened to them?
Old age,
Really? Wow.
yeah. So
Wow.
just lived a long, long life. So yeah, no, it was pretty intense.
Oh, fantastic though. I bet they brought a huge amount of joy to your life
Mm,
as chaotic joy.
yeah, chaos. Yeah, high on the chaos for sure. Okay, so this photo. Okay, this is this is just really stunning. It's a selfie. I'm assuming it's a selfie, where you are holding the camera at arm's length, and behind you is this like gradual slope of this beach. And the sand isn't especially. I mean, the sun is either early morning or late afternoon because it's angled. The sky is mostly blue, but there are clouds far away. You can see a hint of a park on your left. You can see the hint that it's cold because you're wearing a hat and a scarf and a jacket. You're at the beach. Why, Melody? Why?
Because the beach is my happy place, and I think it's the place that I just go to between writing and everything else in life to collect myself again. And I
Hmm.
think if I could give from my own learnings and experience any advice to a wannabe writer, it would be to find your place because you need to. You need that space. You need those moments in time when you can just soak in the environment around you, wherever that may be. So the beach represents throughout writing these books on this journey, because it has been a journey, a
Hmm. Hmm.
remarkable journey. The beach has always been a place to me that signifies peace and stepping away from everything else in the world, really. Stepping
Right.
away from the computer and stepping away from life in many ways, daily life, certainly. So that was just a shot to, I guess, remind me and to remind everyone listening that we all need that place
Hmm.
where our heart rests. You
Hmm.
need to rest your heart sometimes.
Sure. I was listening to this one neuroscience podcast where the big bit of advice was because life today is all about distraction and attention, getting our attention pulled over this way and that way. He was suggesting that what we need to do is get back to this place where, for example, you're at a beach without a device and you're just in your body and you're just present and you're thinking whatever thoughts are coming through. And it's very meditative and it's just a good place to kind of recenter and zero yourself. And now, but the thing is, the practice of writing is in itself, it's a meditation, right? Like it's about sitting there and seeing like what is a narrative that's going to come, even if it's nonfiction. Like
Mm.
you're still following a train of thought and you're recording that train of thought in words. So why don't you talk about how did you land at the desk? How did you land to become a writer?
Well, for me, as I said, there was two different kinds of writing. The writing I did as a reporter, as a journalist, which I consider quite different to writing books.
Sure.
The previous writing me and the current writing me, I suppose. The current book writing me only happened because I discovered that the dolphins in the Port River were dying of some unknown
Oh.
disease, unknown cause. And I'd gone back to visit Adelaide, South Australia, where the dolphins are. And I was with my partner we're staying at a hotel actually. And I said to him, I have to write my story now
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I had to raise awareness again about the dolphins, and I had to let people know that these were amazing creatures.
Yep.
And in my view, dolphins really are the ambassadors of the sea. They help
Mm-hmm.
us connect to the ocean.
Yeah.
And so it was that quick at that point, was happened that quickly, that I just said, I need to write this book. So what I did initially was actually wrote an article for Australia's only national newspaper, and I gave a hint of my story. I'd never really spoken about my story before. My friends knew about my background,
Mm-hmm.
but I decided at that point to start exposing myself a little. And from that point on, after I'd done that, I felt that I actually could write about myself. I'd never written
Mm-hmm.
about myself before. And that's when I decided to actually write the first book.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it evolved. I hadn't really ever intended being a writer per se, but
Mm-hmm.
it took something shocking to actually push me into action.
Right.
And now, as I said to you, I'm in action, and I've realised that I actually have quite a lot I want to say
Yeah.
and share. So that's what I've done. I've just kept going.
Going back to the photo with Jane Goodall, like you're a I don't remember the title. What it was? It was like an ambassador for cetacean.
I'm a member of the Jane. Actually, I'm co-chair of the Jane. I'm co-chair now, so I've had a bit of a bolster up in that. A
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks, Lou. It's a voluntary position, so it's all good, but it's
Still
still great.
good.
It's all good.
Yep.
So I'm now co-chair of the Jane Goodall Institute's Cetacea Committee.
Okay.
It's really the other members of the committee who are really quite remarkable. They're
Right.
remarkable people, and I'm just really blessed to be given the opportunity to be part of it. To be quite frank with you.
Can I have one little factoid or one little call to action or little something for a listener to hear about why they should care? What do they need to know so that they get off their butts and go do something to help dolphins, whales, porpoises, all that stuff?
I know. There's so many. There's so many. I think we humans have the power to. Let me go back there. Humans have the power to hurt things or create things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this goes back to the measure of how I judge other people.
Mm-hmm.
So use that power wisely. You can always judge somebody by how they use that power, whether they use that power to be kind and compassionate, or to wield that power for their own benefit and to destroy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I would just urge people to consider using their power for compassion
Right. Right.
and realize that these beings, these entities, these individuals that live in the ocean, and unfortunately also in marine parks where they're
Mm-hmm.
forced to perform for fish, are sentient beings.
Yeah.
They're intelligent, they're sociable, they're very much like us, if you want to,
Mm-hmm.
make the distinction. And we should be using our power as humanity to show compassion and care for their environment, because it reflects on us as a species too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what I get people to think about. Use your power wisely. As a human, you've got power.
Mm-hmm.
Use it for compassion and use it towards other things that don't have that power. Animals don't have that power,
Mm-hmm.
but we do. And we need to be compassionate about how we use it.
Not the biggest ask in the world, but potentially the biggest ask in the world. What is the title of your first book? Just so people know it.
It's The Dolphin Who Saved Me is the title of my memoir. The title of my the title of my lovely fantasy, which I do love. It's called A Cat Called Q and the Magic Globe.
Okay.
And the title of the rescue animal book, which is coming out in September, is just called Sheltered.
Fantastic. Melody, look, just thank you so much for the conversation. It goes by very quickly.
It really does. It's an hour.
Okay, but like I just want like, is there any last thing you want to? So, for example, somebody like let's say a younger you, or just somebody trying to figure out where to put their energy and time. Who can they reach out to, for example, to join and support you, like, or join the Jane Goodall Foundation, or
I really encourage young people to get involved with the Jane Goodall Institute's Roots and Shoots program, because that's a fabulous program. It's in every part of the world, and it really does encourage individuals to make a difference,
mm-hmm,
and it really facilitates that. So I'd really encourage that, and that doesn't require a monetary donation. It's not about money; it's about time and getting involved with
mm-hmm,
the program. So that's terrific. And I'd also encourage people, and this is going to be a little controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. Before you go to a marine park with captive dolphins, just do your research. Consider it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Consider
Not
it.
so controversial, actually. It's
Well,
just do the right thing. Just do the
just
right
do the
thing.
right thing by the animal, and
Yeah,
and think about whether you'd want to be in a tank doing that for the rest of your life.
right, right. The Dolphin Who Saved Me.
Yes.
Definitely a book worth getting, by Melody Horrill.
Oh,
And
thank
sorry if
you.
I've butchered your last name,
No, you
but
didn't. That was pretty good, actually.
okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
Ran. I really enjoyed the chat. It's been great.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and have a great weekend in Melbourne.
Enjoy Hong Kong. See ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Oh, baby, I like